got the Heritage Foundation's Walter Lohman with us, the market watchers Heather Zumaraga and Scott Martin. Scott, I ended with you. I think the differentiator in the talk about China, what got things moving today, I know we have this Pavlovian response. Better things look for trade, better things look for stock. Worse, just the opposite. I get that. But there were some interesting developments in the Chinese press, or at least organs associated with the Chinese press, saying things that went a little bit beyond talks are resuming. This was from Hu Jing, who is the editor-in-chief of the Global Times. It's attached to the party apparatus, if you will, in China. There's more possibility of a breakthrough between the two sides. Another social media website with a blog associated to the China social media said unlikely, very likely, I should say, there will be new developments in the upcoming trade talks. Now, that's raising it up a notch and probably raising expectations. If that proves true, that we get something, even on a tentative basis, what do you think?
It's good stuff. I think we see more days like this. Now, you're right, Neil. The tone is definitely better. Now, anything seems better today than it does over the last couple weeks of that icy tone that we'd had with China and their cohorts. So anything probably looks good today, as you noted. But I will tell you, there's hope. And it goes to show you what the market really wants and needs. And what the market's been telling us all summer is that slowly, as this China deal expectation fades, it really does impact the market. You know, trade wars, I think, are maybe a little tougher to win than maybe we originally thought. It's a little tougher to move supply chains and move resource management by some of these great tech companies that we have here in the States. So any progress that is made, that granted must continue, Neil. You know, one day does not a new trend make, will be great for the stock market because of the fact that hope will return and investors will put on risk again.
Heather, if anyone had any doubts that China and these talks ruled the market sentiment roost, this put that to bed, didn't it?
Oh, for sure. If you don't think that tariffs have an impact on the market, you haven't been paying attention, that's for sure. I think it's important to note that the tariffs implemented this week, the 15% additional on $125 billion worth of goods, it's not over. It's positive revelations that the Chinese are renewed negotiations set here to meet with Washington trade officials in early October. But if you think about it, the additional tariffs right now set to be implemented on December 15th on Chinese goods would then mean that almost everything we buy from China, about $550 billion worth, would have a tariff attached to it. So that would not be a positive sign for the markets. Hopefully we get something resolved before December 15th.
Walter, it means that we don't get everything resolved, but we get a couple of key issues resolved. Will that be enough? I mean, how do you see it at the Heritage Foundation?
Well, I think the Chinese are willing to go a good distance on these issues. I mean, they came up with a 150-page agreement back in May, so I think they're ready to do a number of things. I think the naysayers back here are largely aimed at some bigger issues that have nothing to do with trade and nothing to do with the welfare of the American people. They're focused on big geopolitics and that sort of thing, and they have an interest in downplaying the prospects that the Chinese will ever change. But I think we could get some good agreement from the Chinese out of this process.
Scott, do you think the old argument that the Chinese need a deal more than we do is accurate?
I don't, and I never have, Neil. I think we both need a deal. I think at times, depending on the company and the sector, the U.S. needs it more, believe it or not. And that's what's been so tough about this and why I think the market has been so desperate for some good news for some time. And Heather's right, too. You know, going forward, Neil, there's some scary tariffs out there. I mean, I'm worried about the price, yes, of my shampoo, for example, that may have a tariff on it. And I know that's embarrassing to admit, but it's very true. It keeps me up at night. I need it very desperately. And that's the thing, too. There's so much impact here so that the U.S. does need something to work out here just as much as China does, if not more.
You know, when you look at it, Heather, I mean, the numbers lately have been improving in China, but we had some numbers that came out today that reinforced the notion that it might have been a one-off, the contraction of manufacturing, because services numbers and other data that's coming in look pretty strong. So you could call that argument maybe a wash, but that it's in neither country's interest to see this drag on a hell of a lot longer, is it?
Oh, absolutely. But I do think that China has a lot more to lose than the U.S., as evident in their economy, which is not doing nearly as well as the U.S. economy. I mean, the ADP report today, we got 195,000 jobs added. That's very, very good. That means that our labor market is strong. That means that consumers have more money in their pockets to buy things like Scotty Martin shampoo that may or may not increase
we got to resolve that. You know, well, Walter, but I know numbers that come out of China should be looked with, you know, a bit of skepticism, but they are growing at a 6% clip. We're growing at a 2% clip. So it always comes back in the Chinese press that we don't need a deal. Real quickly, if they don't get a deal, are they in trouble?
No, I think they can. I think they can ride this out. I mean, it hurts them, but it's hurting us too. I think they can ride it out, but I think they also have to realize that if we don't get a deal by the end of the year, these tariffs are going to get baked in.
All right, we'll watch very, very closely, guys. Thank you very, very much.